Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are now live. Thank you so much for joining me on a conversation with. I am your humble host, Floyd Marshall Jr., and I am joined today by Carmen Lobue. They, them, or just boo. Um, and I am so excited to speak with her
Them.
because she is just okay.
They
When you
are.
look up, when they are. Okay, I'll get used to it. I am so excited to speak to Carmen. I'm just going to use your name. I am so excited to speak to Carmen because they have done so much in this industry. And when you look up the word or the meaning of multi hyphenate, Carmen is sitting there staring back at you. So I'm just going to read a little bit of what Carmen has accomplished in the business so far. Carmen Lobue is a queer, non-binary Afro-Filipinx American filmmaker with a passion for social activism that is expressed through their work as a creator. Carmen's early recognition includes Paper Magazine's Paper Predictions 100 People Taking Over 2019, and the Disruptor Foundation, Craig Hatkoff, and the Legacy Labs 2018 New Legacy Maker honoree. Lobue directed season one of the dramedy web series Cheer Up Charlie, Holly Shorts, and Urban Worlds Film Festival 2019. Their work on Cheer Up Charlie also earned them a nomination for Best Director at Tower Best, I hope I said that right, in 2019. As a writer, Carmen was chosen as a semi-finalist for the 2018 Sundance New Voices Lab for their queer comedy drama series, Coy. Lobue was also a Black Public Media Fund finalist in 2020, and Carmen has a slew of other credits as a writer, producer, and director. Absolutely amazing. As I was reading this, I was like, oh my gosh. Carmen, welcome to A Conversation With. How are you?
I'm great. Happy to be here. How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. I am not doing bad. So let's get right to this. So Carmen, how did you get started in this business?
I think the short answer is I went to a prep school and it was a kind of school where you kind of got to learn a lot of new things. Like you could do ceramics, you could do comparative anatomy, you could do pretty much anything. I was in Cleveland at the time and went to the school and they had a drama program. I was running track at the time and they had drama. So I figured, why not try and do a play? Why not take their directing class? I fell in love with the directing program. They only had one directing class and I took it and then I asked the dean to create a part 2 for me so that I could take the class again. So
Mm,
I sort of asked for my own curriculum. I made a whole proposal and everything, achieved that, took the class again, which led them developing, a pretty cool introduction to directing. And that's what I decided that I really wanted to do. I had also acted in that school, and Catherine Hahn went to that school, and that was my first. I was the first person that told me that I could go to school for, to be an artist. Catherine Hahn went to Yale, and I was like, "You can do that. You can go to school for that." So then I just pursued directing from there, and then in order to kind of come out of my shell as an introvert, I studied acting to become a better director, and now I'm acting on TV and directing and doing all of the things. So I don't really label myself as doing one or the other. I just sort of do whatever my heart desires, I guess.
wow, wow. So you go to the school official and you say, "Hey, I'd like for you to create this," and they say, "Okay." Now, um, do you think that came about because of the fact that no one had ever asked them that before, and they were so excited that, you know what, okay, Carmen is actually so interested in this that it's actually something that we want to create, so hell, why not? Because
Well,
that's
the
pretty
pro-
interesting that they would create an entire thing just for you to take it.
well, they already had a directing one. So I had
Right.
already excelled in the first class and I just
Hmm.
thought I'm eager for more and this is what I want to pursue. So I don't know how I convinced them. I must have been
Hmm.
very convincing at that time. So I don't know, but they did it.
Right. What besides yourself, did it turn out to be a good turnout once people found out that they were going to actually create a second part of it?
Yeah, I think if I remember correctly, I think there were like 8 of us.
Mm,
So, and I think people really enjoyed it. And then they did something with the public theater. So we would go to the public theater and take some, or not the public theater. I'm so New York that I forget. The Playhouse, Playhouse Theater. It's a Tony award-winning theater in Cleveland, and they would take the students,
mhm.
once a week or once a month, and we would talk to a director there. So they really, invested in making that program a lot better. And that's what I ended up getting scholarship for to go to school. I wanted to study directing, so that's what I pursued.
Wow. So, Carmen, when did the transition to New York happen? So you're in Cleveland, you do director
Hmm.
one, you do director two, you fall in love with it. So
Hmm.
when did the transition to New York happen, and what were some of the challenges you faced moving from Cleveland OHIO to New York City? Because it is a vast difference, and the pace
Hmm.
is totally different. So what were some of the challenges?
Um, you know, I'm really I mean, there are so many different challenges, and I have to say before I answer this, I know I should have told my family how challenging it was, but I didn't. I had a lot of support from my aunts, and I had some family that is in New York.
Okay.
So that was pretty easy. And I had moved around a lot when I was a kid. So I had experienced LA before, I had experienced Cleveland, then, had a lot of support from my aunts in bringing me to New York to see shows. And my godfather, I was able to, stay with family when I first got here and until I got into a dorm situation. And then from there, the adjustment was the only thing that was hard for me to adjust to was fresh food. I wanted like more fresh food, so I would cook for myself a lot.
Mhm.
I wasn't really eating out, you know. Now I love the food in the city, but at that time I was like, well, where do they get these eggs from? So that was something I had to get over, but other than that, like, I always loved New York, wanted to be here, and always felt like I was a New Yorker no matter where I lived before, kind of being cemented into the city.
Hmm. So you didn't, well, Boo didn't have like a 4-year formal training, which I found very interesting. So after conservatory, what was the next move as far as you knew? I hope I'm saying that right. That Boo knew that
Mhm.
she wanted to do acting, directing, writing, whatever. What was the next step for you in that process? Because conservatory's done, and then what was your next move?
Um, well, I had already kind of figured out in undergrad that I didn't want to work in theater
Mhm.
because I mean, it's hard. It's hard to work in theater as a non-cis man, like just and to be black and try and break in, you know, it just is difficult. And I just felt like what film was doing at that time was a lot more progressive. And I was starting to come out of my shell,
Mhm.
in pursuing acting. and just coming into myself and in my voice as an artist. So I already knew in my mind that I
Mhm.
wanted to be a director. So, but I needed to learn how difficult it would be to tell a story as an actor. So
Mm.
that helped me as a writer. While I was in conservatory, I was still doing stand-up comedy. I did that for 5 years. I was writing. I was meeting other students at NYU and other schools that I could build with. So I would just, I would volunteer. I would collaborate with other people. So I already had started making films and was taking whatever job I could to sort of learn how things worked on set.
Mhm.
And then we had a really vigorous program in the Meisner training that I had. So we were learning about films all the time,
Mm.
and watching a lot of classic films, taking a lot of different classes. And then I just went from there to take master classes. Like I took master classes at the Labyrinth Theater. I saw a bunch of shows. I just made it a commitment. I made a commitment to myself to usher at different theaters, to, just hang around theater and hang around sets just so that I would meet people and I could soak up whatever. And, I'm a natural observer. So that's sort of how I started. I don't think there wasn't any like particular path I took. I was just
Mhm.
trying to soak up the city as much as possible.
So, Carmen, you just said quite a few things, and I'm sitting here saying, wow. If you can, Carmen, I'd like for you to delve a little bit into basically what you just covered as far as you volunteered and you did everything possible to put yourself in a position to succeed regardless of what that was, because so often what happens in this business, people will come in and say, well, I want to do directing, or I want to be a writer, or I want to be an actress, but they're not willing to put in the work. And listening to everything you just said, Boo, that's basically a blueprint in how to actually be successful in this business. So, Boo, can you explain to people the importance of doing that PA job, or doing that ushering job, or just volunteering where and when needed?
Um, that's I am a spiritual person.
Mhm.
So I think the simplest way for me to answer that is I would always try and kind of find my flow. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like if something was exciting to me as an artist, I needed to see it. I just needed to see it. I had to know for myself. I got
Mhm.
so tired of not I'm still tired of not being able to afford to see Broadway shows every night of the week, you know? So you have to find a way. And I would go, it's like Soho Rep has like 99-cent Sundays. It's stuff
Mhm.
like that. You have to go and see the theater. And I didn't know this at the time. There's a Zen saying where you don't do as they do, you seek what they sought.
Mm.
So if there was anybody that I wanted to be like, or anybody like that I wanted to work with, I would look and be like, well, what did they do? How did they get to where they were going? And I wouldn't expect to do the exact same thing in the exact same way that they did it. I would just look for things that I enjoyed. That's it. Yeah, I would look for people who were telling stories. I would look for
Mhm.
people who, as a writer, who prize words. So as looking for those things, like who loves words more than a poet? Then I started going to poetry shows once a week. You're looking to be better at composition. So that means you have to go to the museum, which can be free for New Yorkers. And a lot of people who I met through either ushering or just hanging around the theater, they always taught me something
Mhm.
um, for free. And I feel like the beauty about being in New York is that there are so many Black actors and activists and artists and people who are open to teaching, young people about the world. So I feel like I was just open and receptive to what people had to offer me. And I think that is the most important thing. Volunteering can be tough. You might not want to work with everyone, but it's important to see what people do wrong and to see what people do right and to practice not judging those people. Just being an observer is enough. So I don't think I looked at things as being transactional.
Mhm.
I think I always was sort of like, all right, I'll do the best I can and I'll pay it forward wherever I can. And that's it. And I feel like you reap the benefits of being in that sort of creative flow and being in touch with that creative synergy that exists in the city. Um, and you'll always be rewarded for it because the more you know, the larger your world becomes. And I think that's like a thing that artists really need to be conscious of and open to.
Hmm. So, Boo, did you find doing a lot of the volunteering work and a lot of the things that um, you found yourself involved in? Were a lot of the people that you ended up working with, uh, did you they end up shooting a lot of your films or plays with a lot of the people that you had built relationships through those things?
Yeah, I would say I do feel really lucky in that way because I think the other part of who I am, like people are afraid to be who they are.
Hmm.
I wasn't afraid to be who I am because I just didn't I had already been a fish out of water
Hmm.
for much of my life. So I just, was kind of focused on myself. And I know that it's really easy to compare yourself to others, or it's really easy to, think you need to be in contact with Ava in order to be successful. You know what I mean? But I don't really feel that way. I would look at the history of artists and I would be like, oh my gosh, in the Harlem Renaissance, they were just hanging out, kikiing at Sylvia's, and then they were probably like, boom, 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 let's put this together. Let's, I was into that. I
Hmm.
was seeking that. I was like, Spike Lee is here. If I can get to Fort Greene, I will find other artists. And, so I was just open. I was like, oh, you want to make something? What are you trying to make? How can I help you? And I think that that sort of being tapped in that way sort of helped me to attract and to be close to people who also had that mindset. So I think without I don't I know that sounds so vague, but it's so important. Um, because people always think of you. People always thought of me.
Hmm.
I don't have a lot of interviews. I don't have a lot of whatever stuff online. I'm living my life. I'm trying to meet other artists. I'm trying to get invited to the basement hangout where we write plays together and we try things out. So I think that is being yourself is also really important. I've always been out as a queer artist. So it's really easy for people to say, oh, well, who do you know that's a queer artist who's an actor who fits this type or what? And it's easy because there's only, just Boo. It's just me.
But you know what? That is so important because mentioning Ava DuVernay and saying that people are trying to get close to her, but she's looking for people that are wanting to work and ready to
Mhm,
work. She's not
mhm,
interested in people trying to get next to her just to get next to her for the
mhm.
proximity.
Yes.
Are you here to work? So, Boo, when you talked about, look, I'm trying to be in the basement, but when I'm trying to be at the party where creatives are actually creating, that's where excuse my French, but that's where the shit gets done.
Mhm.
And interestingly enough, if people would look, and I'll just do this quick story, and then there's another question I want to ask you. I remember John Goodman talking about when him and Bruce Willis were coming up in the theater, and how they had like this group of people, and they all worked in the smallest theater for free,
Yep.
no money. And these are award-winning A-list actors. And he would talk about how they would work in these off, a couple more off-Broadway plays, talking about one day. So when people are sitting here saying, well, I'm trying to get to A to Z quickly, that's not going to happen. You got to go B, C, D, E, and F in order to get there. So the way that Boo is doing it is actually the right way because, and let me ask you this, or they this, to you, what is the importance of, and I'm jumping over my questions, but I got to ask you this, the importance of relationship building.
Hmm. Um, I mean, relationships, I'm like, that's the fruit of life. I don't even know what that means. No, I think, you know, people would always say, oh, it's all in who you know, or this is a
Mhm,
business of relationships. And yeah, sure, that's true. But some people make relationships for the sake of making those relationships. And I
mhm,
think that other people, I'll put it like this, I think our job as artists is to be innovative. So you have to be in the basement.
mhm,
You have to be authentic. And if you are not figuring out what turns you off and turns you on as an artist, what you're here to do, what you want to talk about, even if it's just for right now, then you're not being true to yourself, to
mhm,
your instrument, you're not serving yourself as an artist. When you serve yourself as an artist by being true to what you want to create and what you want to put into the world, when you do that, you are an innovator. You are in the pocket thinking about, sitting, you have to be quiet with yourself and ask, what story do I want to tell? How do I want to tell it? And once you begin to be as conscious as you can about the things that you want and the things that you really really want to speak on and that are true to who you are, once you do that, you'll attract everything that you need. It's and I know that's, again, sounds so vague. You can look at, Ghetto Film School, you can look at Sundance Lab, Sundance Collab, you can look at all of these things, and you can say, all right, if I do it like this, in the exact order, in the exact way, in the exact, it's like, no, that's not what Quinta Brunson was doing. Quinta was just doing Quinta.
mhm.
So I mean, if there's a will, there's a way. If you, I feel like if the relationships that you're making are relationships that are pure in intent, and if you're connecting with people from a heart-centered place, that carries a vibration to it that other things do not. So
Mm.
I think that's where you sort of pick up on the people who are meant to be in your life and meant to serve you and your artistic voice, and vice versa. And I think that's why you see so many people continue to work together for many years, because they found their creative family. And I think that every human just wants to feel like they belong. That's what we all need. That's what we all want. But you got to belong to yourself, you know, in the truest way. Otherwise, you're going to attract the wrong people in the wrong situations.
Yeah, that is so true. And actually, I'm reading this book by Ed Milet. He's a very big influence in my life. And in the book, he talked about there are six things that people want. And Tony Robbins taught it to him.
Mm,
And that is one of the things that, people want to be loved and they want to belong. And if you can do that, now different people need different things at different points in their life. But
mhm,
one of the things that is always there is everyone's need to be loved, and everyone's need to belong. So I just have to tell you, or Boo, that you're not sounding vague. You're actually making a lot of sense. And I truly hope that when people listen to this podcast in the future, that they'll have a pen and a piece of paper, because Boo is dropping some serious gems, as they like to say on Clubhouse. But Boo, I wanted to ask about the types of films that they are involved in. And I've read, and I am really learning today, folks. I am really learning how to use the pronouns today. But I read in Boo's profile, you were bullied, and a couple of other things, and that a lot of Boo's work reflects a desire to overcome social injustices, bullying, the lack of representation in the LGBTQIA community. So can Boo speak to the films that you like to make and want to make in the future that will cover these types of topics? I hope I got that right.
Oh yeah, totally.
Okay.
What do I want to make? I feel like I'm in the incubator period right now of
Mhm.
my artistry. I just finished a show. So that's great. And I'm on a project right now, a TV special. And the TV special I am working on is about a Black trans woman who is in a relationship with a young white man, and he doesn't know how to love her.
Mm.
They're going to break up. And it's not that he has bad intentions, it's that he has no intention. He has no intention. He doesn't, everybody, it always comes down to love, right? And for this particular story, it's, this world doesn't know how to love and care for and respect and honor this life, this part of life, this
Mhm.
Black trans woman. He doesn't know how to love her. He doesn't take the time to figure out how she receives love or how she needs love. And so they're going to break up because sooner or later she's going to figure that out.
Mhm.
She's going to figure out that performative allyship isn't enough. And that's something that I think everybody can relate to. So I really try when I'm making things to try and frame not just LGBTQIA people, but to try and find a way to bring lightness
Mhm.
and bring a little bit of like peace and joy. You know what I mean? Like there has to be something about it that feels like uh that just so that we see someone who is marginalized or othered in some way, we just see
Mhm.
them in a space where even if for a moment they really belong, and we've found a way to show them how they are meant to be loved or need to be loved, or show them. And I'm all about the Black joy.
Mhm.
Like I need that. I don't care if it's not profitable because we live in a capitalistic society. I don't care. I want to see us in a way that we don't get to see ourselves all the time. So that was part of like Pink and Blue. Pink and Blue is a film about a trans couple. One is Black, Nigerian, and the other is Filipino. And this trans couple has a surprise pregnancy, and they're trying to figure out how to raise their child without gender. We've never seen that before.
Mhm.
We've never seen that before. No matter how many notes I got on this film about making it shorter, I said, absolutely not. We've never seen people like this in love and creating a legacy for themselves and for their family. We need to
Mhm.
see that. So I have to do that with tenderness. I have to do that with care, and I have to show them in a beautiful environment so that we can imagine what it might be like to live in a space, or so there is something about it that is a little heightened in terms of the
Mhm.
tone. And I aspire to be someone that can create those beautiful images that we haven't seen before, because we deserve to imagine that. We deserve to seek liberation in any way that we can. And I feel like it's really hard as a person who is Black in America, or a person that is just not not a cis white man in America to envision a world where we experience different types of freedom and different types of love and different types of belonging. So if I am so privileged to be able to create those images, I will do so. And I'll fight for them to be seen as much as possible.
Beautiful. Well, that leads me to a question that I hadn't written down, but Boo said something that really struck me about love. In today's world, we could talk about Florida and a couple of other places and everything that's going on and the major pushback because it is a concerted effort. How difficult is it now to bring projects such as Pink and Blue to life because you have such a wide and large portion of people in this country that, for lack of a better word, want to put love in a box, that it's supposed to look a certain way, that if it's not a white male, white female, picket fence, 2.5 kids, then it ain't right and it doesn't work. What has been the difficulties with Boo and other filmmakers in the LGBTQI space to make films that show families? Because family is family. You know, you don't have to be blood related, but family goes so much more deeper than that. What has been the difficulties, if there have been any, in bringing these types of films to the screen?
You know, I think it's important to note that people really, I think artists have really good intentions right now with trying to represent all people. I think that I mean I know writers, I know showrunners, I know people who do their very best to check every box, and we can drag them for trying to check boxes. You know, they get dragged by queer community, by hetero community, by everybody's always got something to say about, you know, who should be represented and who shouldn't. But I think where I take issue is the people at the top who don't want to foot the bill. There are always artists who say, yeah, we need this, we need this. Okay. And all it takes is one person to say, okay, you want to tell that story? Great. Find someone that's not you, because you probably shouldn't be telling that story, to tell the story so that it can be done in the manner that it should, which honors the people that that character represents, right? And a lot of times people are going to miss the mark. And I'm fine with people missing the mark right now because everybody's learning, everybody is doing the best that they can, right? And then I think the other side of that, are they doing the best that they can? And then when I speak to some of my elders who are artists, they say, oh, we're going to die anyway. This is yours. So that's the hope that I feel like has been bestowed upon me, that all of these people who are, you know, making these laws and making these decisions on whether or not someone like me or my chosen family, you know, should exist in whatever world that's being created, the reality is those people are going to die. So we just have to keep doing us and keep fighting for the future generations, because the way things are right now, moving so quickly, I'm already old and I'm not. But you know what I mean?
Oh Lord, what does that make me?
I'm already thinking, what do I have to, how do I have to pay it forward? Because I know the people that fought for me. Without, you know, loving versus Virginia, I couldn't exist as a Black Filipino, right? A lot of people couldn't exist without that. So when I think of, when I kind of think about what history teaches me about the present,
Mhm.
then that's how I have to figure out how to move.
That's
I
that's
think
that's
people are trying to figure out how to move right now.
yeah.
And I think we have to get organized, but I don't think that people who want to see our stories don't exist. I feel that we don't have the infrastructure or the capital to
Mhm.
be able to create the things that need to be created at this moment. But
Mhm.
when we do, best believe, like when I do, it's a wrap. I'll fund whatever.
Mhm. So, Carmen, as a director and a producer of color,
Mhm.
how difficult is it navigating a predominantly white male industry as a Black Filipina queer woman? How
Well,
difficult has the did I say that right? Did I get that right?
so I identify as a human, like, I don't identify with gender. I think
Okay.
it really limits, my expression of self.
Hmm.
Um, and we didn't have these gender constructs, way back when, before colonization and before imperialism. So I don't really subscribe to that. But
Hmm.
to answer your question, you're asking me how difficult is it in this industry?
Or is it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. But like last week, I went to NYU to speak to the design students. And was sort of thinking, oh my gosh, all right, how can I enter this classroom setting in this institution and leave these students with hope? Especially the ones that are like, black and brown, or, like because there were a handful, and I could tell. I was like, yeah, I remember that. I remember that feeling. you know, I remember that feeling of just, trying to either fit in or be invisible or just go, let me not say anything,
Hmm.
because that's what we do. We just we'll be in the room and we'll just do our best and we'll grit our teeth and we'll get what we need to get and then we'll leave, and the cost is great.
Mm.
However, the way I see it right now, everybody has to get used to being the first one in that room. You just have to get used to being the first person in your family, in your community, in your neighborhood to do that thing. There were so many people that were the first to do whatever they had to do, and there's a lot of, navigating those environments that are really, really tough. I still navigate them every week, every day. The benefit of the pandemic has been that I'm a little bit more isolated. I get to choose who I spend my time with in a way that I didn't before.
Hmm.
So I have a lot more reserve in terms of my energy and where I'll give it and where I'll share it. Um, but I think it's our job when we are in those spaces to figure out, to the best of our ability, how to make that space safer for the next person like us, or that, has less than we do. Um, we have to figure out how to make that space safe for that next person. So when I enter those spaces where they're predominantly white or white adjacent, or, I am that fish out of water, I have to remind myself, like, I am here for a reason. And the best that I can do is thank the people that made it possible for me to be here, and figure out what I can do to make it safer or better or more comfortable for the next person. That's it.
Hmm. Backseat drivers. That leads right into that. Backseat drivers. Boo spoke about that on another interview that I was listening to.
Oh.
So, dealing with the backseat driver. Can you expand on that? Or can
I
you
don't even
expand
know
on
what
it,
that
please?
is. What is a backseat driver?
Well, the backseat driver, Boo talked about that in the interview. Kent State, the backseat driver is, for those of you who don't know, let's say, for instance, you're driving down the street in your car and you have a passenger and they want to tell you how to drive your car. And
Oh,
you're the
okay.
one in the driver's seat.
Mm-hmm.
But I heard that in another interview that Carmen had done, where there was an AD on set being a backseat driver.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah. Um, that backseat driver apologized to me.
oh wow.
So yeah, I think like there's this book called Primal Leadership, which I think that's the title. That's really helpful. Um, I am always I'm always thinking of myself like, all right, I'm a director here, I'm a producer here. A lot of the time I've been on sets where I was a producer and people thought that I was crafty or thought that I was a makeup artist or thought that I was grip or I don't know, whatever they thought, just not their boss, not the person who is going to sign their check, right? So, and I'm like, that could be for a million different reasons. And
Mhm.
it's not, I'm not going to let that penetrate my energy bubble because it's just not worth it and you have to expend energy elsewhere. So I tend to be an observer. I am an introvert, so I do tend to work in questions. It's like when somebody asks you something silly and you go, tell me more, or what made you ask that question, you know or just, okay, heard. And then you just move on.
Mhm.
So I think like by treating other people with kindness and talking to people in like a calm and gentle way, I found definitely diffuses a lot of those difficult personalities. But they may not realize while it's happening that they are the difficult personality.
Mhm.
However, the next day they might come back differently. But I don't want anybody to see me lose my cool because it's not worth it. And I can't afford to let somebody else break my spirit because there have been times when somebody was really awful. I had one really awful AD, and I was like, that energy is affecting my entire team. They have to
Mhm.
go. And I just let them go on the spot. There's just no reason for that.
Hmm. Hmm. That's awesome. So, Boo, I spoke earlier about the fact that they didn't attend any major film schools, no NYU, no UCLA, uh, Full Sail, whatever. But they have managed to build such an amazing career. They are, award winning, multiple honors. Again, making it to the top of 100 lists of people, taking over 2019. And I saw something Boo had actually put on Twitter a few days ago where they received another mention for a high honor. So I was just researching all over the place. How and you talked and Boo talked about the fact that some people have it and some people don't, because some people can go to a 4-year school and not do a fraction of what Boo did. But you didn't, or Boo didn't have formal training, and yet Boo sits on, in my opinion, the cusp of something amazing about to happen. So Boo, talk about that a little bit. The fact that they didn't go to, any of the major film schools, but yet here they sit.
Hmm. um, I'm just gonna grab my tea really quick.
Oh no, go ahead, please.
wasn't feeling well for the last week, so I'm
Oh,
just need some
wow.
tea. You know, there's that saying where it's like comparison is a thief of joy.
Mm.
So I pretty much mind my business. Yeah, like, you know, I mind my business because you don't have to be the best, but you do your best.
Hmm.
You
Ooh,
know, you don't have to be the best, but just do the best. I'm not
I'm gonna
better
have to
than
use that
anybody,
in
and
a
nobody's better than me.
wow.
You know, and it's like, again, because I have the understanding, I have a lot of first, like people in my family that were like the first to do this thing.
Mhm.
So I think about it, wow, that must have been hard to do this at this time in history, and to, you know what I mean, that sounds like it was difficult. So I'm just going to keep trying because I don't know how much time I have on this earth, so I
Mhm.
do sort of live my life like I don't have tomorrow. So I think that's part of it. And I really love the people that are in my life. I have artists in my life that I'm obsessed with, and I
Mm.
I am so interested, and I'm so like, I hound them. What are you making? What do you know what I mean? I might not see somebody for 3 years and be like, "Hey, remember when you said you were writing this thing? I am waiting for it."
Mm.
You know? So that's the other thing. Like, I have a lot of people, I have a great community that I've built in my life. I like the people that I surround myself with. They inspire me, and you know, I have people in my life who'll be like, "Yeah, you know, I never really thought about that." They think I'm weird.
Mm.
I'm just being myself, but the thing is they accept me as I am, and I'm sort of like, "Okay, well, my taste doesn't match up with my talent, so I'm just gonna keep trying. I'm gonna keep making things because how else am I gonna grow?" So I'm always looking for opportunities for me to grow. And I wanna talk about this because this is important. No, I didn't go to Yale or NYU or UCLA or USC or wherever these schools are, but I used to sneak in to NYU. I snuck in
Mm.
to see Ava. I snuck in to see Ava. I stood in
Okay.
line. So many people, because I would hang around people from NYU, they would think that I went to NYU. I snuck into pitch classes. I went to NYU last week to speak to their design students. And one of them was like, "You look really familiar." Like some of the people that were there. I was like, "I bet I do." Because I've been hanging out around here and I meant that. I wasn't like, "Yeah, you pay me to come speak at your school." I was like, "No, I've been sneaking into the school for like, I don't know, maybe like 7 years." The alumni network,
Wow.
you know, once you make one friend or, you know, two friends, a couple friends at these places, and you just hang out, you go to theater, you go to museums, you meet people with different interests that are in alignment with yours. You know, I never experienced having the support of like a community of Black nerds until I moved to New York and decided to stay here.
Mm.
So the people that I meet are the people that like things that I like to read, to go see things, to learn things. And then, you know, it kind of becomes, I guess, easier because you're always being fed and you're always feeding the people that, you know, the artists that are also hungry around you. And I think that's the real key. If there's a will, there's a way. So sneak into NYU, sneak into Yale, sneak into wherever you have to sneak in. Listen to the podcast, figure out how to be a plus one. That's what I did. And I just, you know, was like, I don't even know if I'm going to get in today. I wonder maybe if I just go at the time when people are rushing in, and I'll just sort of, you know, and that's what I did. I would be by myself. Film festivals, that's another great place to learn. You know, they always have some sort of free panel or some free thing that's happening. And I'm just like, if it's for free, it's for me. So that's my advice there.
You know what's so fascinating? I didn't go to film school. I started in this about 20 years ago as an actor, and then kind of transitioned into other things. And a lot of my friends who happen to be very successful never stepped foot inside of a film school. A film school education is absolutely phenomenal because I have a lot of friends that actually did go to film school and they're doing very well. But that is not the only way. I guess I'll just say to skin a cat. But Boo said something very interesting about sneaking into NYU, and something came to mind when they said that. And I think it was Ed Milet or John Maxwell. They talked about, if you want to be great, then be in the proximity of greatness. So the fact that they snuck into NYU to listen to an Ava DuVernay, proximity. The fact that they may have sidled down the aisle when Spike Lee was speaking, proximity to greatness. So, it's always good to listen to people such as that. And let's talk about Spike really quickly. He's an inspiration to Boo, is he not?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Yeah, he's an inspiration to me. Like, even in terms of like how there was this article in the New York Times about how Spike Lee does business, literally how he runs his business. He's always making money on every single thing that he does. And I was like, wow, you belong to nobody but yourself. And that's the type of freedom as an artist that I'm seeking. So yeah, I mean, he's an inspiration for many different reasons. I don't want to be Spike Lee, but I want to I yearn to experience that freedom to sort of not be beholden to anybody, but whatever spirit calls me to be available for. And I think that's really special.
So Boo, you do so much. And again, award-winning director, producer, writer. How do they balance their time?
Oh, well,
Because
that's
there's a lot
hard.
going on.
I know. I am also an actor because I studied, so that's another thing. And I did my first like big TV job this past last year. And I had a really interesting time because the showrunner was like, "Yeah, your career's taking an interesting turn." And I was like, "You're right." But it just felt so good to be seen, for somebody to be like, "Yeah, we know that you do all these other things, but like, we think you could really do this thing." And I was like, "Okay, cool. Well, let me go in there and see what I can learn. Let me go in there and observe. Let me go." You know what I mean? Like, I can learn so much by being on set. I can learn so much from other people. I can learn from the other actors. I can learn from, the scripty. I can learn. It's like, I have an opportunity here to not just get paid, but also to expand my worldview and expand whatever ideas I have about what this industry can offer me as someone wanting to be a television director. So I don't know. I think like, what was your question again? I'm sorry.
Where do you find the time? Where does Boo
Oh,
find
where do I
time?
find the time?
Because you're on the L word, the L word.
Yeah, the Elder Generation Q. Where did I find that time? I will say that I haven't had a lot of breaks. I had like 1 month off last in 2022. I got a lot of body work done. I don't have a lot of time, but I'm in therapy every week. I don't have a lot of time, but I pray every morning. I don't have a lot of time, but I eat really well. I think you make time for the things that you are committed to. You have to build the life that you want. So I sort of am, always interrogating, what do I want to get out of this life? I'm sort of like, what can I get out of this life right now in this moment while also planning for my death? Like, do you know what I mean? That's just kind of where I live. I'm like, well, tomorrow might not be promised. So, but also my godfather, who's a big inspiration for me as well, he told me like, all you have to do is do at least one thing every day to get you closer to the thing that you want to do.
Smart
So
man.
Yes. And I was like, wow, that's actually really insightful. Because all I have to do is send a couple emails, write a page, and you'll get there. I think that people just underestimate underestimate how much, grit and discipline and true love and pure intent. I feel like that those ingredients will make you great.
Yeah. I just got finished reading. I'm very big in personal development. So if you hear me dropping names, that's why. I'm very big into personal development. And I just got finished reading this book by Eric, the hip hop preacher Thomas.
Oh.
And he talked about what Boo's godfather talked about, one thing a day. But Eric Thomas said, if you just do your best to improve by 1% every single day, at the end of the year, you will have improved 365%, which is absolutely crazy. And when it was broken down like that, I said, now who the heck wouldn't want to improve in anything that they do by 365%, which would be, you would be totally transformed as a person or whatever it is that you were doing. So Boo's godfather is on point. Wow, that is absolutely amazing. But we're going to get ready to close up because I don't want to take too much more of your time. I just have a couple of more questions for Boo. Your films. Now we did touch on Pink and Blue, but Boo did a show on Hulu. Your Attention Please. I absolutely loved it, and here are the reasons why. First of all, the colors were amazing. The sound was beautiful, and I just loved how all of the different generations and the mixture of family was represented without saying a word. And I interviewed a gentleman by the name of Darian Dianju last week, and he talked about he's not very big on language, but he's huge on feeling, because the feeling, when you have a feeling, it conveys a certain thing. And as I was watching Your Attention Please, what he kept saying kept running through my head, because I'm saying there is no dialogue, but there's a lot being said. So, Boo, can you talk about Your Attention Please? Because it was absolutely beautiful. And by the way, my mother-in-law, her father is full Filipino as well. So my wife is Filipina and Black as well. So I just said we have something in common. So
I love that.
Yeah. So can Boo talk about Your Attention Please?
Yeah, so Your Attention Please is a show on Hulu, and it's about prolific Black people, living prolific Black people. So my episode is centering Tao Lee Goff, Dr. Tao Lee Goff. And Dr. Tao is a teacher at Cornell, I think, right now. And also, she went to Princeton and she went to Princeton, and where else did she go? I think she went to Yale too. But anyway, so I got this job, which, mind you, I got this job. I found the person who hired me. I have agents, I have managers, all that stuff, but they found me on Twitter. The person who was hiring saw a tweet that I put out. And that's how I got an interview. Because I was like, I wonder how they found me. Because my agent didn't know, nobody knew. But I found her. I'm so thankful that she hired me, or that she rooted for me. This Asian woman was looking for someone to tell this story. And I'm so privileged to have been able to talk about Tao's story. But Tao teaches, she's writing a book I think it's called Black Capital Chinese Debt. And she talks about Afro-Asian intimacies. So upon meeting for this job to do this episode, it was sort of like, okay, you can do whatever you want. We want something that's really different from all these other episodes that we have. We don't want to do something that's documentary. We don't want to do something that, and it was like, okay, well, how do I tell the story that is, how do I teach what Tao is teaching? And by Afro-Asian intimacy, I mean that she talks about how, the history of Black and Asian communities diasporically, she's talking about that history in a way that relates to how we talk about and we talk about an ancestor veneration. She talks about gambling. She talks about food. She talks about music and the things that our cultures owe one another. Like, we wouldn't have the turntable if it hadn't been for, the Black men and the Black people who would hang out at the bodegas that the Asians owned. They would make music there, and then they started collaborating, and you would have Chinese producers and you would have these Black artists creating together. And that's how we get, a Grace Jones, right? I'm butchering this, but you can
That's
look her
okay.
up and she'll teach. So I'm like, what? She's teaching us about ourself and our shared history. That is brilliant. How do we get this sensory experience? Because there's so many similarities in our food and in our culture and how we speak to our ancestors and our spiritual connections to the past, future, present generations. Like, there's just something that we got, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's like, and I'm learning about myself. I'm learning about, oh, wow, I wonder if that's why my granddad burns this incense. I wonder that's why at my mother's house, she has pictures of, the ancestors. And there is I didn't know I had an altar. I didn't know that I have an altar, but I didn't know that that's what it's called until I talked to my friend who is a Black man and studying to become an Ifa priest. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't know that these are things that we already know. So if I can give an audience a sense of that's that feeling of belonging, but you don't know why you understand this thing that we know is true, then that's when we're tapping into something that's a little bit different. So I'm so happy that you enjoyed that episode. I'm so happy that, it said a lot and it resonated with you somehow, some way, because there aren't a lot of words in that episode.
No, but you know what? Again, and this is something when I'm talking to filmmakers and actors, this is what I tell them. Some of the most powerful scenes that you've ever witnessed in the film, the actor never said a word.
Mm-hmm.
And if you really want to be a phenomenal actor, sometimes it's not about what's coming out of your mouth, but what are you conveying? Mm-hmm. What are you saying without actually saying anything? And when I was watching the program, the joy and the belonging and the love and the sense of community that I got from it, I was just smiling from ear to ear. And to know that young lady was just covered, that everybody had her back, and if you're trying to get to her, then you got to go through us, and being a father of two daughters, it really resonated with me because I have two girls. So to see strong Black women, Asian women, just Caribbean women, and then to see the brothers in all hues and colors, really extending just themselves to this little girl. I was like, see, that's what I'm talking about right there. So yeah, but and then maybe again because I'm a former filmmaker, so I looked at it a little differently. But it was just beautifully done in the music and the colors And I was like, wow, that was a long day. They started in the day and it's night. So they've been out there for quite some time. So how long, Boo, did it take to shoot?
Actually, I had to do that in one day.
Ooh.
No, I had 2 days. 2 days.
Okay.
I had to do it in 2 days. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, well, you did well, Boo, excuse me. I am learning so much tonight. This is absolutely amazing. This is why I love having this podcast, because I'm learning so much, and I truly appreciate you being here to teach me. But we're almost done. What was the last question? Oh, what's next? And where can people find you, or find Boo rather? But most importantly, what advice would Boo give to anyone? And especially, no, I'm just going to leave it at that. What advice would Boo give to anyone coming into this business and wanting to carve out a space for themselves? What advice would Boo give them?
When I was starting, I really was curious about doing stand-up. I saw Tracy Morgan on the street. And I was like, all right, I got to go over. I was like 17. I was like, I need to go talk to Tracy Morgan. Tracy Morgan is on his like BlackBerry or whatever that phone was at the time. You know what I mean? And just, and I was like, Tracy Morgan, Mr. Tracy, you know what I mean? I was also respectful. And I was like, I was thinking about doing stand-up. Do you know how I could get into? And he was like, just do it. If you're scared, get a dog. Best advice ever. So
if you're scared, get a dog.
Yeah. And like, you know what? That was great advice. Yeah, you can find my website is my name, CarmenLobue at just www.carmenlobue.com. You can find me on Instagram. I'm there every now and then. What I have coming up, I have an episode coming up on Out TV. I don't know the air date yet, but it's Miss Peppermint's Girl Like Me TV special. And advice that I would give, Tracy Morgan's advice was pretty good, but I'm hesitant to give advice to artists right now because we are in unprecedented times, and I'm not going to pretend like it isn't hard. Because I can't imagine going back in time and having to do everything that I've done and been doing. It's hard now, but I can't imagine being 17 again and starting to do all of this in a pandemic. So the best advice that I would give to anyone right now is don't take for granted how important your mental health is, because you can't do anything well when you're depressed. You just can't do it. You just don't have it. You don't have it to give. And listen, Lars von Trier, that director, he tried it. He said, I want to know what it would be like for me to make something while I'm depressed. Well, guess what? He makes very dark films, so it might be okay. So just take care of your mental health, and just, even if it means I worked so many different jobs, trying to build my career at the same time, like, don't let anybody make you feel ashamed for having 5 jobs. People would tell me, oh, you should be why are you always working? Why are you always working? Because not everybody has it like that. So I guess my other thing is, don't be discouraged, because I know that this is a pay to play industry. I understand that. I'm still paying, right? So, but I know that, that one day my value and my net worth will change. And that's okay. It doesn't have to be right now. That's okay. It's like right now I just go back to my roots. You always go back. Like, the material stuff will come, but for right now it's always about the work, and it's about doing the best you can with what you've got. So you know, sometimes people sweat about those things. Who cares? Wear secondhand clothes and keep writing on a piece of paper. Who cares? Don't let anybody make you feel like you're not enough or you don't have enough or you always have enough. You have just enough. And as long as you're hungry and you're curious and you are determined, nobody can teach grit. Nobody can teach that. And you have to have grit to make it, especially if you are, you know, of communities where, you know, we're underrepresented and we don't have all the tools that Elon Musk has.
Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you had your pen and pad out because that was some fire. And Carmen is so right. Grit is not something that you can teach. Either you have it or you don't. And oftentimes you'd be surprised at who has it.
Mhm.
They just have to, you know, get in a ring to find out that it's there, you know, and that's the beauty of, you know, just start. What's the worst that could happen? What's the worst that could happen if you just start? I can tell you what could happen if you don't start, 100% failure. But if you start, there's a possibility that it may work. So, Carmen, thank you so much for spending some time with me. And ladies and gentlemen, if you were here and you left and you came back and then you left again, that's no problem because you can catch it on Apple Podcasts and wherever this is streaming. So uh, if you like the episode, please share it, please subscribe because I just want to keep bringing people such as Carmen on this show because the education that I received today has just been amazing. And I humbly thank you so much for that. So, again, make sure if you're not following her, please, or following they, please follow Boo on all their social media platforms and all that other good stuff. And as I like to end every show by saying, love this like a hobby, but and but please treat this like a business. Everyone have a phenomenal night, and thank you so much for joining us on A Conversation With. Good night.